Welcome to the Godfather Chronicles podcast. My name is Miguel Garcia, and I am your host. If you find value in the podcast, share it with your family and friends, and make sure you rate it. You can follow me on Instagram at MAGPatriot, or Facebook, Miguel Godfather, or email me your questions at miguel@godfatherchronicles.com. This podcast is sponsored by naturalchoicecompany.com. Unlock your health. Please go visit the website and buy the products. In this is episode 14, and for the first time, I have a guest. Not just a guest, but someone who I deeply respect and appreciate. And let me tell you that when I met him, we had an instant connection, as if we were brothers separated at birth. We have a weekly call every Wednesday, and believe me, I look forward to these calls because we have so much in common. He's a man of his word. He's a man that does not utter empty words. He takes action and executes with a sense of urgency. And above all, he considers adversity a gift. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you Marcus Aurelius Anderson. He's a best-selling author of The Gift of Adversity, a TEDx speaker, a keynote speaker, elite executive mindset coach to CEOs, leaders, and entrepreneurs. He's also the host of the Acta Nonverba podcast, featuring hard-hitting interviews with people that live by the ethos of actions, not words. Marcus is the world's foremost authority on the gift of adversity. He's also my artist syndicate brother, and we have an awesome podcast for you. We're not holding anything back.
That's it.
So, Marcus, welcome, my friend, my brother.
My brother, thank you for having me.
To have you here. I'm so honored that you're the first guest that I have here. And I was really not thinking about bringing a guest ever, but then I met you, and I think you and I have a lot of common experiences, beliefs, and we do act, we don't talk, Yeah.
Words are easy. Actions dictate what actually happens in our lives. And until we give the words that we say meaning with action, we're just like everybody else. And a lot of the people that we see now, that's what they do. They can look a certain way on social media or on whatever their website is, but are they taking action?
Are they taking action? That is so true, man. I know a lot of folks that do a lot of masterminds, or they read a lot of books, and they're proud of all those things, but if you don't take action, then nothing's going to happen, right?
And that's it. And I think everybody right now is trying to look for that answer that will help them get away with not taking action. But no matter who you are, no matter how many books you read, how many masterminds you're a part of, it all comes down to, are you willing to execute? Are you willing to fall down? Are you willing to fail? And then how are you going to hold yourself in the face of adversity? And that's what holds most people back, whether they be entrepreneurs, leaders, warriors, whatever it is.
Yeah. So I read your book, The Gift of Adversity. It's one of the best books that I've ever read because it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of eloquence in the way you write. I love your story, being paralyzed, and I cannot imagine being paralyzed and thinking, am I going to walk again? And then you beat all the odds, man. And so it's a great story that inspired me, and I hopefully will inspire more people. I think that the gift of adversity is a gift for humankind.
All right. Thank you so much. I'm honored by your words. That was very kind, and that's why I wrote it. I had to get it out there, and I felt like I had a responsibility, because none of this stuff would have happened to me unless there was a purpose behind it, unless I was supposed to learn something and then hopefully give that lesson to somebody else. So you give one person this book, and if it helps change their life, or they give it to somebody else and it changes their life, that's the goal. That's the real impact behind it.
There's a lot of generosity there. I'm also, the podcast for me is a way of getting some of the knowledge that I have and the experiences out so that we could help people out. It's not about becoming notorious or famous or anything like that. It's just I think it's our duty to share the experiences. So, people talk about making the world a better place. Well, how do you make the world a better place?
Right.
Right?
That's exactly it.
We're helping people skip the mistakes that we made by sharing our experiences. That would make the world a better place, I think.
I agree.
So I'm going to start the podcast with one of your quotes. The truth is anyone can repeat wise words, but to truly appreciate wisdom, it takes life experience. You and I have been around the block a few times. We have substance experience, not theories. How does one gain experience at an early age? This is for the young ones out there that think they know everything, that they have coaching practices and they're only 21 years old or something like that. How do people gain experience in your opinion?
It comes back to what we were saying before. It comes back to taking action. It comes back to deeds and not words. It comes back to, like you said, actually having a purpose or a mission that you're truly driven by, and then executing against that as much as you possibly can. Now, to not be vague, saying things like, are you really helping people with what you do? Or are you just trying to build a coaching practice or what have you? And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're younger. But understand, people are not paying you for your certifications or for your website. They're paying you for the experiences that you possess or your ability to help them navigate the hardships that they're going through. And a lot of people, it's hard for them to trust a younger person. And it's not your fault. It's just the nature of the beast. If I'm 49 right now, so if I asked a 21-year-old to help me about something that I didn't know about, that would be fine. But when it comes to life experience, there's only one way to get it, and that's to go out, fall down, fail, understand that you're not made out of porcelain, wipe yourself off, and keep going. And most people, what do we always hear? The moment they get punched in the mouth the first time, they just kind of give up. It's almost like in combat, they say that there's no plan in war that survives the first point of contact, the first gunshot. And that's where the rubber meets the road. So being in college or being in a bubble is fine for theory.
Yeah.
But you have to go out and live it, fall down a lot, and then learn and be humble in the process.
I think that's one way, when you fall down a lot or whatever, is you try, you live those moments and you create experiences. But you could also gain experience by learning from your elders. I tell my children that you learn by watching. So if you're 16 years old, 18 years old, and you're watching, you're getting into drugs, look at a drug addict, look at his life, and see what that looks like. That will teach you. You don't have to experience that, but that will teach you a lesson. So for you guys out there, you need to be more observant. You need to look at people and see, okay, why are they going through? Like, for instance, with marriage as well, you got to pick the right partner, and you got to look at marriages and go, I don't want that type of marriage. Okay, what kind of person is he or is she? And do I want to be that or not? And so try to emulate good folks, good examples, right?
I absolutely agree. And just like you were saying, look at where that person is now and then look at where they are down the road. Where does that road lie? What is waiting for them? So if you're talking about drug addiction, the road that you're going to walk down is going to be very lonely, very isolated, and then eventually, for a lot of people, it ends in death. Is that how you want it to play out? Is that where you want this to go? The same thing with, they say that youth is wasted on the young because, again, with that youthful exuberance comes this idea of, oh, I can do this, or I'm smarter than other people. And we were both the same way when we were younger. So please don't think that we're talking down to anybody and saying, oh, you should be doing this. But please understand that what you so desperately want to learn through experience, you can gain from other people if you're willing to find a person who knows of which they speak, who is telling you the truth, and wants you to succeed. But so many times when we hear that, it's either it sounds too simple, because in business, what do we see? Everybody wants to complicate it. They want to make it sexier than what it needs to be. And the reason why they do that is they're not aware of it, but unconsciously they want to stay busy instead of actually being productive. They want to just be working in the business and not actually working on the business. All these analogies. But the main thing is it has to be simple, just like combat. It has to work. And then you have to be able to do it in the heat of combat. So if you're an entrepreneur or a leader or a warrior or an athlete, you can't just sit back and say, this is what I'll do in that situation. You have no idea. You don't. You have an idea of what you would like to happen, hopefully. And if you out-train your anxiety and adversity, you can do that. But for most people, they want to go out and learn on their own, which is fine. But if you have the right people, if you have a person like Miguel, if you have his sort of content, if you coach with him, you'll see that he's going to compress your time so much. Like he has a lifetime of experience in family and relationships and business. So how much would you pay to be able to cut 4 years off your entrepreneurial journey while having an incredible family, great relationships, caring about yourself, having a religious and spiritual component? That's what everybody seems to want. They're not even aware of it. So go out and find those people whose words resonate with you. If what we're saying now resonates with you, listen to the rest of his podcast. Go out and take action on this material. But don't sit there and hope that we're going to say, oh, what you're doing right now is fine. It's probably not.
No. I think that I want to close this point with the words that you just said. I mean, I think that young people should try to emulate somebody. They should find some role model and look at their at their activities, the way they behave, their like for instance, Andy Frisella. It's one of those guys that works his butt off or whatever, and he's got his power list, and it's one of the things that I adopted. Mm-hmm. I always had a to-do list, but I think the power list resonated with me because of the word power, mm-hmm. and the way he explained it to me, it clicked. So. Yeah, you're 49, I'm 59. So I started my entrepreneurial journey at 41, kind of late in life. But when I sold my business, I turned 55. That's when I met Andy and Ed and got into the art syndicate. But the power list resonated so much for me because I was able to really focus on tasks that move the needle. Before, you had sort of the discipline, mm-hmm. but this was like an extra, ingredient that I was missing. And yes. So with also Ed Milet has it's not a theory, but he calls it 3 days in one.
Yeah, the 18-hour day.
Yeah.
I love that.
And so for me, I break down my power list in two. It's like my morning tasks, and I will not go to lunch. I will punish myself not to go to lunch until I finish whatever morning task that I had. And then I have my afternoon power list, and I won't go home and have dinner with my family until I finish that stuff. It's just only things that move the needle.
Yeah.
And so, again, in closing on this particular topic for you guys out there, look up for leaders in your area, in your field, or whatever, and study them. You have to study them.
Yeah.
Don't just look at them and go, oh, wow, I want to be like him. Study their habits and all the things that they do. Right.
Absolutely. It's easy for us to go through and look at and hear something. Maybe we'll say something during this interview and you'll say, yeah, I've heard that before. That's fine. You've heard it before, but are you doing it? Are you doing it consistently? Are you doing it with urgency with what Miguel just described? Are you willing to not go to lunch until you have this task done? Are you willing to not go home to your family until then? And here's the other part. I'm sure that if you've listened to Miguel before, his family is everything. So the fact that he has that kind of urgency and puts that deadline on himself and says, I'm not going to go home, which is the most important thing to you, until you get this done. So that creates tremendous urgency, tremendous enthusiasm. And guys, in anything in your life, business, entrepreneurship, anything, there's going to be a time when you don't want to do something. And discipline is what gets you to that next level. If you're not willing to do that, if you're not willing to be consistently disciplined, then don't complain about the results that you're getting, because the results that you're getting right now are perfectly aligned with the amount of work, urgency, and priorities that you currently have.
Yeah. Oh, definitely, man. I mean, your rewards they're according to the effort that you put in. So, garbage in, garbage out.
That's it.
So that's just as simple as that. Man, that was awesome. I love your book, man. Again, The Gift of Adversity. There's so many quotes in there that really resonate with me. There's another quote by you: "Misery loves company, but not as much as mediocrity." And how do people slip into mediocrity?
One small step at a time. They don't even know it. So you've read my book, but I did what a lot of people did. I went to high school, went to college, and then the people that you're around in those environments dictate the kind of job you want to get, the kind of people that you're around even more. But mediocrity is something that is insidious, and it happens slowly, these small shades of gray. And we don't even feel it. It's almost like when they say, a fish doesn't know that there's water around it because you can't even feel it. But what happens is eventually everybody gets to a point. For some people, if they look at their body or their weight, for example, they may see a picture of themselves and now they're like, wow, I look horrible. Or they see a video or they see something from when they were in better shape. And now they say, I don't look like that. And that can be their reality check. Sometimes they get a gut check when they lose something, whether it be a relationship, a job, an opportunity, or it can also be physical adversity, like with what we're discussing, which is coming down to that ground zero, that very bottom of your existence, and realizing, okay, I'm at rock bottom. Now what do I do? Now where do I go? Because you don't know what you're made of until you've actually been there. And you don't understand how the rest of your life is going to be until you're willing. Adversity doesn't make you into something. It reveals what you are not. It strips away all the stuff that we think that we have. And once you're down to that very raw place, it's very humbling. It can break you. It broke me. Mm-hmm. But every person that we've met that is strong has been broken. It's what they do after the breaking. It's what they do to get better, to get stronger. That's what separates them from the rest of the people that just stay stagnant in that position.
Yeah. So for me, I look at people, I ask the question, why do people settle? And a lot of times is their environment, for one. I mean, that's your first experience in life is with your family. And if your family, it's mediocre, you're going to be mediocre, right? That's going to be normal for you. I remember, I'm not saying that my family was mediocre because my dad worked his butt off and did better than his father. And so he would always tell me, I want you to do better than I do, than I did. So, but I remember his goal was to retire with a Social Security check. So that was the winning, for a very long time, that was the dream. He's like, I can't wait till I'm 62 and retire and get my Social Security and just relax. And so for a long time, I thought that was the standard. Mm-hmm. You grow in that environment. So, yeah. Why do people settle? Because you are in a certain environment. I think now, how do you get out of that? How do you get from the mindset? I think now with the information age, there's a lot of good stuff that could tell you, they could take your pulse basically and go, hey, you are in a mediocre environment. The friends that you hang out with, right?
That's everything.
Yeah, your relationships. So how do you get out of that? Mediocrity is basically, in my opinion, is you got to look at your environment first and measure it against something else.
Right.
So when I joined the syndicate, I had sold my company, multi-million-dollar. And I thought I was rich. I'm the richest person in my family, right? So I made it. I'm excited. I don't need Social Security to retire and all sorts of things. Then I got into the syndicate and I started meeting more people. And there were many other levels, higher levels than I am. Yes. And now I'm like, what the hell? Being, $2-3 million in the bank account is nothing. These people have 10, 15, whatever. They're buying jets. They're doing all sorts of things. So I'm like, wow. So I try to. That's why I started the new business, because this new business is going to help me with some charities that my wife and I had. And we're going to do a lot of philanthropy work and all sorts of things, but he's going to put me in a different level as well. So I guess, in my opinion, you got to get out of the circle that you're in. You got to check yourself against other folks that are more successful than you are,
Right.
and see how they live and see where you want to go. What are your thoughts on getting out of mediocrity?
I absolutely agree. You have to, first of all, be aware that you are in mediocrity, which means you're doing the bare minimum. You're sleeping late, hitting snooze multiple times. You don't want to go to that job. You can't wait to be off that job. You probably live for the weekend. You probably hate Mondays. You probably post about it on social media, about how much you hate it. But the fact that you're not trying to do anything to change that is why you're still stuck there. And again, you look at these other people, and here's the thing, guys. Michael Jordan is a human. He's mortal. Think of anybody that's incredible at what they did. They are all mortal. They're all human. There is nothing different about them other than the fact that they are actually working their tails off, a lot of them, to get to that point. There's a guy named Josh Waitzkin, who they called a chess prodigy. They wrote the Searching for Bobby Fischer about him. And he says, I hate being called a chess prodigy because I worked my ass off to get to this place. So working his butt off to get there, people think, oh, well, Josh Waitzkin is, he's a world champion. I can't be him. No, he had to work to get to that place. So understanding that you are at a level that there's so much more that you could be asking from yourself. And here's what happens. You set a standard for yourself and say, you know what, I'm going to walk a mile today. I'm not going to hit snooze anymore, and I'm going to take all the sugar out of my diet. And then you maintain that standard. And then you say, well, if I'm capable of this, maybe I could get a better job. Maybe I could ask that person out. Maybe I could do whatever it is. But until you ask that question, and here's the other part, you and I are older, so we grew up without social media. We grew up without the internet. And for those of you that are saying, what? That's not even possible. There weren't people alive back then. But that's what you have to understand. Right now, there are so many things that can distract you. It can be your phone. It can be your social media. You can watch and stream Netflix or Hulu on your phone at any given time. And that's what a lot of people do. They just sort of default to say, I have a moment. Oh, I'm going to check this, or I'm going to look at this, or I'm going to go to this website, or I'm going to get on YouTube or TikTok or Clubhouse or whatever it is that you like. But the thing is, in those moments, you could be choosing to read a quality book. You could be choosing to meditate or pray. You could be choosing to do a lot of other things, but a lot of people aren't even aware that there's a choice. They just go from one distraction to another. And here's what happens when you're distracted all the time. It takes bigger and bigger distractions to distract you. So now it used to be where you wanted to just check out social media. Now you're watching an entire season of The Bachelor because that's just a train wreck on camera, but yet that's what you need to keep you occupied. And that preoccupation keeps you from looking at your life, looking what's important. I ask clients, what is that? Some people work way too much in an unhealthy way. And the reason why they do that is because they want to avoid the anxiety or fear or whatever issue that they're trying to escape. And they would rather work themselves, into the early grave, because when they get off work, they just want to go to sleep. They don't want to have to think about what else is going on. And that's, you may look at like a successful person, if you own a business or an entrepreneur, that grind is not sustainable. That grind is not something that's going to give you the thing that you so desperately want. So money is important for sure, and we both want to make even more, but that's, in my mind, it's just a way to show the world that what I'm doing is helping people. It's like a scorecard almost. And again, we want to provide an incredible quality of life for our families, but as long as we have our family, that's what really matters. And frankly, just like with what you're talking about, the knowledge that you have and the experience that you had in your life and the marriage that you have and the family that you have, you can literally just wipe everything away financially, but you still have the skill set and the foundation with the family and those relationships to build anything that you want to. And you're doing that right now with your new company. So that's what a lot of people, if you have a bunch of stuff on a piece of paper that you want to do, that's fine, but you need to look at the underlying stuff, the foundation of it. The reason why people do not do very well on New Year's resolutions is because they have all these things on paper that sound great, but they don't even believe that they can do it.
Yeah, I think that they also have a lot. So if I
Right.
was going to get out of mediocrity, I would suggest that you guys do a list and say, okay, what are the things that are hurting me?
Yep.
And then focus on those in one step at a time. I mean, like you said, hitting the snooze several times. You could start with that. It's a simple thing.
Yeah.
Master that, and then move on to the next one so you don't get overwhelmed. Because I know that for me, looking at goals, I have to break it down. Otherwise, it gets overwhelming. And so for you guys to improve your lives, I think that you have to start simple, do a list, and go, okay, I'm going to attack this one. Well, whatever it takes, a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, to get that bad behavior out of my life. And then you're making progress when that happens. And I think that that's how you kind of start climbing out of that mediocrity hole.
I agree.
So, I mean, want to give you some practical advice. And I think you guys, you need to look at the things that are hurting you. And you know what they are. Again, do a list of them and then start attacking one at a time. You don't have to attack them all because then it's a losing battle, but one at a time, right?
And there's different ways to look at it. I love the way you said that. You can look at something and say, this thing at the very top of this list, this is the thing that I need to change the most. And so attacking that is probably a good idea. But if you don't feel that you're in a place yet, or you're like, I can never do that, but you have 4 other things on the list, and the very bottom one is as simple as don't hit snooze.
Right.
That helps you build momentum. That's a small win that builds belief. And again, the mechanism to change that habit is the same. I tell myself, I do not tolerate sleeping in. I tell myself, I'm not the kind of person who hits a snooze. I tell myself that what I have in mind is so powerful, I don't have the luxury of hitting snooze. There's a lot of stuff that rides on every decision that I make. So when you take accountability of that, you take ownership of it, and you realize that your decisions make a lot more impact than maybe you think, just to you, but to the people around you. When you realize that, it gives you a lot more responsibility. And now that will make you think about everything you do, from the kind of food that you put in your body, the exercise that you do or do not do, the way that you treat yourself. Because the way that you treat yourself in the end will eventually be the way that you treat the people around you.
Yeah. There's also another, I just thought about it, and this is the beautiful thing about having a great guest on your podcast, is that you trigger some ideas. Like, I know that I don't love myself enough to stop doing something. But if I think about something greater than me, like, okay, I'm going to do this for my family.
There it is.
Then I do it.
Yep.
And so for you guys, if you don't have the desire to get out of mediocrity or whatever, because you don't love yourself enough, but look at something greater. Can you do it for your family? Can you do it for your God? Can you do it for whoever else? But the goal is for you to grab onto something bigger than you if you don't have the willpower to do it for yourself.
Yep, that's exactly it. We will do more for others than we will for ourselves.
Yeah. So anyway, I hope you guys got some great actionable items there to apply in your life, and it might not be easy, but it's worth it.
That's it. Once you're there, once you've accomplished it, all the hard work that you had to do, you'll kind of forget about.
Yeah.
And it won't seem as hard as you thought it was going to be, because we make it out to be a lot worse in our minds than what it really is.